Hello everyone and welcome to Game 4 in a best of 7 series between Moon, Glade, and RiseN here on Python. Yeah, Vista Lasik tournament decided to introduce 4 new maps that I have not seen, so I'm going to do a quick recap and talk about this map before I let this game go underway. We have 4 spawning locations here on this map, one at the what I'll call the 1 o'clock position, another I believe over here at the 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock position, one over here at the 7 o'clock position, and then finally one here at the 8 o'clock position. There is a relatively small choke point going down to your natural expansion. This natural expansion once again only has 7 minerals patches, so we'll not be able to mine nearly as quickly and nearly as effectively and early on in the game. One of the things that I think about these 7 mineral patches is it kind of evens up the balance issue against Zerg in particular. Zerg are able to establish that very early expansion and pretty easily against most of their opponents, so it kind of gives a little bit of an economic balance. Back over here, there is some brush right here, so a brush leading outside of that front door. A Terran player or or any really long range units will be able to set up supply depots, pylons into this location and be able to watch out on both sides of this brush, giving him a very strong advantage trying to defend this natural expansion. There are 2 sets of Xel'Naga watchtowers here in a very open location in the center of the map. I believe this area is traversable, so this is pretty much a very wide opening here. There is another base over here, and this other base there's only one base coming off of it, and I got confused for just a moment. There is a command center over here on the bottom left and on the top right hand side. These are essentially island expansions. There are no way to walk into this location whatsoever, so you would be forced to lift up a command center or try to drop off a drone or a probe into this location if you wanted to establish that expansion. There are also 2 high yield mineral expansions, however they are doubly blocked. When I say doubly blocked, I mean that there's destructible rocks preventing any command center from being placed down. In addition, there is also destructible debris blocking the gas geyser. And on top of that, there's only 1 gas geyser in these locations. So these high yield mineral expansions are essentially mineral only. And I don't know if they're going to be used all too often, as gas seems to be the main resource in the game for these high level replays. Gonna go ahead and start up this game now, and we see Glade spawning as the purple Zerg player at the 1 o'clock position. Meanwhile, RiseN spawning over here as the teal Protoss player. So once again, Zerg versus Protoss here on Python, and it should be an interesting matchup once again. RiseN in the hole 3-0 so far, so he really needs to be able to pull off the win to at least force a game 5. One of the interesting things to note about this matchup is I believe the winner of this matchup plays TLO. I was talking with the tournament organizers, and they had gotten TLO to play the winner of this particular matchup, and it should be a very interesting game so far. I believe Glade has the significant advantage, so I'll assume so far that Glade will be playing TLO unless RiseN can come back and make a very strong attempt. You see RiseN setting up that standard low ground pylon that he likes to do, and now with the way that these buildings are positioned, what RiseN can do is he can put some photon cannons into this location, and then with 1 pylon here, able to gain sight and start dealing damage towards these units even though they're on the wrong side of that brush, and that would be a very strong advantage indeed. As a probe now making its way north into the base of Glade, we see also a drone trying to do some scouting as well. I'm not sure if these players know exactly all the nuances of this map, so no one should be able to abuse it all too much. We now see a drone just making its way out, trying to do as much scouting as possible and into the base of Glade. Glade looking to set up a 14 hatchery, and now, yes, did set up a 14 hatchery over here. So Glade setting up a 14 hatchery over here on the low ground. And once again, 7 mineral patches. This large mineral patch looked like 2 mineral patches for just 1 second, but yeah, only 7 mineral patches here. We now see a drone making its way out and a forge being placed down by RiseN. So RiseN continuing to try to use that low ground forge expansion in order to get a strong economic lead or stay even with the economic lead of Glade. We see Glade using that patrol over here between these two, between this location here, unable to set up any pylons, and now that was a very smart move by Glade. Glade wants to make sure that no pylons and no cannons are able to be placed down. Activating one Zelnaga watchtower here, able to get a lot of sight throughout this location. And you will notice that this map is fairly large, even though this map is just normally fairly large. And is that a flying shark? Not 100% sure what that is, but it looks like a flying shark, kind of nice. We now see a drone coming in across the map as well, and we'll quickly be able to see a gateway being placed down. And now we also see another pylon being placed here, so nicely done by RiseN. RiseN will be able to see on the other side of this front door fairly easily as a nexus being placed down. RiseN hoping for a longer game. Will he be able to get a strong enough economy? We now see also an assimilator coming into play, but RiseN once again supply locked for a couple seconds there, finally able to start training up more and more probes once again, trying to chrono boost, trying to get back into this economic game. I believe RiseN is a little bit behind, and that's really a shame considering that RiseN does have chrono boost. So RiseN with chrono boost should have a little bit of an economic lead before Glade is able to get those queens. Glade now continuing to just train up more and more drones. You can see the rally point over here to these mineral patches instead. Wants to try to get 2 drones per mineral patch into these locations and get a strong lead. We now see an assimilator extractor block over here on the Vespene Geyser. Not quite sure why Glade would even bother to do that, as RiseN has another option for gas over here on this low ground. RiseN now running off of 2 nexuses will have a lot of chrono boost and will be able to get a strong economy going. We now see a photon cannon here. Perhaps another photon cannon should be placed here, and we also see Glade able to see on the other side of this wall as well, with one overlord in the air able to gain the side. What is that? No, the probe is not able to see it. No, unable to see that overlord there. The extractor has been completed, and Glade will be blocking RiseN for a little while. However, RiseN now going into a triple gas build over here. So RiseN may be trying to go for perhaps a Stargate into Phoenix play. This is a very large open map though, so I'm not quite sure how effective those Phoenixes will be on a map that has so much movement for ground units. So that is probably not the best use. We see RiseN also having activating both of these Zelnaga watchtowers, able to gain sight, able to keep track of this one overlord in the air as well. You can see Moonglade just trying to make sure that he has a lot of overlords protecting it from any sort of drops or any units that may be trying to fly into the space. Double creep tumors now being laid down by Glade, and Glade going for a very, very strong army, a strong ground army it seems, and that is probably a very, very viable option. As soon as these creep tumors are laid down out across the map, if we see a fair amount of roaches and hydralisks, those hydralisks and roaches will be able to position themselves very easily in this wide open field. At that point, all Glade would really need to do is just simply contain his opponent in his base. We now see Glade also having a couple creep tumors and not using them. Is he going to spawn another one here? Yeah, he will try to get this creep tumor out into this location as quickly as possible. One probe now trying to come in, however, will get slashed down already to 8 hit points, and another queen over here. Will it be able to get there in time? No, unable to. Finally, this queen able to get another final slash onto that probe. We do see a lot of roaches currently being trained and upgrading to tier 2. Also, we are getting the level 1 weapons upgrade for those zealots and those stalkers. And an interesting and important thing to note is that 1-0 stalkers or 1-1 stalkers deal less damage to roaches than 1-1 roaches compared to 0-0. I'll talk about that probably in a QA tutorial a little bit later. One probe now trying to run away will be able to outrun that queen as soon as it gets off of that creep, and now activating the Zelnaga watchtower. However, if he stands there a little bit too long, that queen will be able to get next to him, and this queen with now so many creep tumors is able to just spread creep all across the map. You can see Glade has so much sight and vision even without activating one of those Zelnaga watchtowers, and now with roaches continuing to be massed, currently now sitting on 11 roaches, and now Glade also trying to take an additional expansion. Perhaps we'll try to take this expansion over here on that high ground. This is a rather wide choke point, so it's fairly difficult to defend. However, Glade has so many creep tumors down across the map that he would be able to get his roach army over there in a big hurry. You can see now roaches now will have a movement speed of 4 in just a moment, or of about 4, being able to outrun stalkers very easily. Stalkers now trying to get the level 1 armor upgrade as well. I do not see a Twilight Council, so this is going to be more of a 4-gate army. However, RiseN has really no idea what Glade is doing at this stage. He does have a couple sentries, and now with this one Overlord and also one changeling quickly getting taken down there, we have an Overlord able to gain sight onto this army. This Forge level 1 armor upgrades will be completed in just a moment. 8 more Roaches now being trained. So Glade now is simply able to macro up a very, very large army very quickly. We are simply into the 10-minute and 30-second mark of this game. And now we see Glade sitting on 122 food army, and things are not looking good at all production-wise. Level 1 armor upgrades have been completed, and now as these creep tumors make their way across the map, RiseN definitely needs to get a robotics facility. We do see a Twilight Council in play, and Stalker Blink has finished being researched. So that Stalker Blink will be able to be utilized in order to try to pull back those lower hit point stalkers. However, Roaches, with that fast movement speed on creep, will simply be able to chase down those units very, very quickly. One changeling quickly getting taken down there. And now as these units continue to move out across the map, Stalkers dealing 15 damage per attack, these Roaches dealing 16 damage per attack, and the sheer number of Roaches may be too much as these units now try to move out. Queen's now getting shot down as well. More and more units. Are we going to get some force fields? You need to get some force fields to try to split this army. One sentry down and another sentry down. Stalkers need to perhaps try to blink. Very, very nicely done, trying to save those low hit point units. Continuing to fight. However, the mass Roaches just simply rolling over this location here. More Stalkers trying to come in position. More and more Stalkers and Roaches engaging. I believe RiseN did not know the sheer number of Roaches that Glade had, and with all of these Roaches now moving out, we'll be able to just continue to push on through. However, a nice, well-timed Stalker blink, and RiseN is forced to retreat. But now that Glade will be getting Burrow in just a second, he will be able to start regenerating all of those Roaches very, very easily. As soon as he reaches critical mass on these Roaches will be able to deal a lot of damage. More blinking back and forth. Roaches trying to give chase once again. Roaches continuing to just try to push out and able to focus down a lot of those low hit point Stalkers as they are trying to run away. That one Stalker now taken down once again, and now continuing to push. Mass Roaches just simply swarming into this location. The Stalkers trying to come back, trying to deal damage, and now nicely done. A nice burrow at the last second. And RiseN will just be forced to play whack-a-mole the rest of this game, continuing to pop up and down. Stalkers trying to blink, and now once again burrowing into the ground. The Roaches do have the level 1 weapon armor, and now gonna pop up once again, perhaps deal some damage. Oh, the Forge was taken down before the level 2 upgrades were able to complete, and this is not looking good at all. More Roaches should be popping up in just a second. There we go. Stalkers trying to blink back. Stalker blink versus Roach burrow. And it is not looking good as those Roaches are able to regenerate those hit points, and very, very carefully. And as RiseN says, GG. So Glade just simply unleashing the power of the Zerg swarm on RiseN, using Roach Burrow very effectively. One of the key things to even note about this Roach Burrow, the Roaches did not have the regeneration upgrade. It was just a standard upgrade. You can see that those Roaches were not moving while burrowed. However, it was still able to regenerate quickly enough so that those Stalkers were not able to regenerate their shields fast enough, and those Roaches had such a strong advantage, able to simply swarm. You can take a look at the army size. Moonglade sitting at 2775 against RiseN's 2000. However, RiseN was trying to get that level 2 weapons upgrade. I think if he got that level 2 weapons upgrade, that would have changed the battle significantly. You can see that those Stalkers are only dealing 13 damage in attack against those Roaches. Meanwhile, the Roaches, I'm not sure. I need to find an unburrowed Roach to see if it had the level 1 weapons upgrade. So those Roaches were effectively dealing 18 or 17 damage against those Stalkers. I'm trying to do the math quickly in my head. I think the Stalkers still had a slightly higher DPS, but not by much. And considering that Roaches are significantly cheaper than Stalkers, these Roaches were able to just simply come in and swarm, infesting the base. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. I hope you guys enjoyed this best of 7 series between RiseN and Glade here on Python. Thanks for watching, and I look forward to casting a match between TLO and Glade on whatever maps they are.